I remember thinking AJ was unbelievable, and he still is. He's like a freak. He's just so athletic and so talented and so strong, and he was always pretty open to anything I wanted to do, and he was more than willing to help. He was very nice. The only time I remember is when it was time for me to beat him for the PWG title. That day I went up to him and I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do? And he's like, I was like, who's going over? And I said, me. And he's like, well, I'm not putting you over. And I was like, oh. And I went like this. I was like, oh, you gotta talk to them about it. And he's like, no, I'm kidding. But for a second I was like, oh, fuck, is he serious? This sucks. But he wasn't. Everything ended up working out good. I do remember that every time I'd wrestle AJ, though, because I wrestled him at PWG, but then I wrestled him also in Quebec City. And in Quebec City, I came up with the idea of taking the Styles Clash from the apron to the floor. And that became a thing. Every time I wrestled AJ, like I took it like 3 times from him. Apron to the floor. Good times.
Yeah, how does that even happen? It has to be painful.
It would fuck my knees up for like a day or two because my knees would be what hit first. But it would always get a pretty ridiculous reaction, so it's a good time. It's fun.
Okay. Also in the summer of 2005, you became PWG champion.
I did.
Not your first title, but I'm guessing PWG was probably your number 1 priority at the time.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Generico won the tag titles that same night, too. And I remember after, we were both sitting up on the roof because the way that venue worked, the sweat box, they would call it, you would go up the stairs to the locker room, and then there's a door that led to the roof. And a lot of people would just go sit up there, And after the show, I went and sat up there, and I was looking at the belt, and I was like, holy fuck, man, that's pretty crazy. And then Generico came to sit next to me, and we were like, oh, it's like we're PWG champions. This is kind of crazy. And for me, especially, because of Rougeau and the way I was brought up in wrestling, I really didn't follow independent wrestling while I was there. But I remember in 2003, might have been 2004, no, it was 2003 because I was still with Rougeau. I went to a birthday party for Eric, the guy who helped train me in Rougeau. And he had also invited Beef, Wellington, and Kid Kamikaze, and I think Generico came with them. And after the party, we were walking somewhere, and the 3 of them, were talking about this independent company in California that had funny names for their shows. Like, are you adequately prepared to rock? And I remember them saying, oh, this, that we really want to go wrestle there. We hope we get to wrestle there. And then here I was like a year and a half, 2 years later, and I was the champion of that company. And I didn't even know anything about it when they were talking about it, because I didn't know anything about independent wrestling. And by that point, PWG was by far our priority. So Generico and I sitting there on that roof with the belts and thinking that, hey, we made enough of a difference in this company that they feel that these 2 kids from Canada should be champions now. That meant a lot to us. And not just from, we had become good friends with Excalibur and Joey and Dragon, and the fact that they trusted us with that meant a lot. So it was, pretty big deal, for sure.